Hey, Transformers, welcome back to another episode of Wine About Your Data. So today we're drinking some wine and we're going to talk more about data, the things that we love here at TCG. First of all, I'm Danae Green and I'm a project consultant here at Transform Consulting Group. And it is my honor to kind of host the show today here.
Yes.
And I'm joined by Amanda Lopez. You want to kind of introduce yourself a little?
Yes, absolutely. So welcome everybody. Amanda Lopez, president, founder here at Transform Consulting Group. Excited to join you today.
I know. I love this. So, all right. Well, let's just go ahead and jump in and grab your glass of wine or coffee or whatever your drink of choice is, right? We love our wine here. And so, Amanda, what did you bring us today?
Yes, so I brought us a wine from Indiana because we are in Indiana. And so all of our winery is this beautiful winery in southern Indiana, close to Bloomington.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a go-to visit. You can take a basket or they have food there. This is a red blend. So they do have a lot of sweet wines, which if that's your thing, there's a lot of options there. It's not mine at the moment, but I love this red blend. It's a great, just go-to red, full body, delicious wine.
Oh, I love it. You always seem to teach me more and more about wine. Like I said, it's the class in college I wish I would have taken. So,
Yep.
you know, the older I get, the more interested I am in the variations. And I am becoming a more dry red fan.
Yes. I think it's like an age, like how, wine ages as I age in my decades, my 20s, I couldn't really tolerate it.
Couldn't do it.
Did a trip to Napa and it was not a good choice because I didn't appreciate good wine at that stage of my life. But we recently went back in my 40s. And so it's a different story now. I appreciate it. My palate maybe has developed. I'm more sophisticated.
More sophisticated. Well, maybe that's it. I turned 40 this year. So, I'm going in and I'm like, the reds are good. So this is delicious. Anyways, well, as much as we could just literally talk about wine, we are
Really
going to
good.
talk about data too.
Yes.
And the
Which
whole...
Another favorite topic of mine. So I'm just as excited.
So this day is your great day then. You get to
It
do
is.
wine and data.
That's right.
And the goal here is that you all will have one less thing to whine about as we continue to teach, educate, learn, and just engage us all on this awesome topic around data. With that being said, our last episode was on data literacy. And really that was like the third component of our data-informed culture that we have here. And it's a whole series of components that we use to assess organizations and to help them improve their data.
Right.
And continue to prove that impact that they all love to do. Today, though, our topic is the last and final one.
Yes.
It is data, and it's all around leadership buy-in.
That's right.
Maybe talk to me a little bit about what does it look like for leadership buy-in to exist?
Absolutely. So when we were creating this framework of how to help organizations become data informed, and did our research and our study about what does it take, and then also just seeing it in practice as well, we really thought we got to have leadership buy-in. And when we say leadership buy-in, we mean every leader in an organization. So it's not just top-level C-suite leaders, it's those mid-managers who also get it. A lot of times when we're coming in to work with an organization, it is that top leadership level who's made the call and wants us to come in. But it's also just as important that every level of leader in that organization also understands and values data, because that's who's really going to help live it out every day for the staff. Because having a data-informed culture in an organization means everybody is bought into this concept, right? We have clear metrics. Everybody knows we're all rowing together in the same direction. We have access to our data when we need it for our positions and roles. We understand what data means, that data literacy, and our leaders understand it and value it and are fostering a culture with their teams. So to talk a little bit more about leadership buy-in and kind of how does that show up. So as I said, one, you want to see the leaders who understand and value the importance of data, but also that they're facilitating a culture with their team and staff to use the data. And so what that looks like, it means that in team meetings, we're looking at our data. We're talking about what's happened if new data has come in on a program or a project that we're working on. We're looking at the data. We're asking questions that we can help facilitate a discussion with staff. We're creating an environment that feels safe. Because again, we talked, I know Sarah and you have hit on this. We don't want data to feel punitive, right? Data is for learning. That's what we say all the time here at TCG. Data is for learning. And so in order to do that, as a leader, you want to help your staff feel safe so that when they look at data, one, if they don't understand it, they can ask.
Right.
Two, if they see an insight that maybe isn't where we wanted it to go, they also feel safe to ask.
Right.
And they can ask questions and not be, penalized for that or blamed for that. So having a culture where, your team feels safe is really important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other key things that I've just learned over the years hanging out with you and the TCG team and our culture of like data really is for learning and for
Absolutely.
growth. And if you really have to, and that really is leadership has to establish that
That's
mentality.
absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Because the reality is data won't always go the way you want.
It won't, and with the clients that we work with, nonprofit government agencies, we work with humans. Humans are messy. We're not predictable, right? And so we can't always determine we are going to hit these targets and hit these goals, like we said. But that's okay because then we can have a conversation with our team to say, okay, why didn't that happen? What could we do differently? What did work? What do we want to change next? Right. And that's where the learning part comes in.
Right.
And it means that we're not okay with not hitting our targets, right? And we want to do better. And we're going to talk about that in future episodes. But at least let's bring folks together around the table to look at it, study it, and talk about that.
So you mentioned talking about it through like agendas and team meetings. What are other ways that you see leadership buy-in prevalent in an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to that, you also see it a part of your performance reviews and there's clarity of roles. So, your team should all have an understanding of what their role is related to your organization's evaluation plan, your data management plan, and that there's, responsibilities there for them. So in those reviews and one-on-one meetings, leadership with staff, they're giving that feedback, and talking about where you did well or we didn't do well and what do we want to do differently. And so definitely those one-on-ones are important. In the leadership team meetings, when the leaders gather, they should be looking at their data to set strategic direction for the future. And so again, we're using both that, data and then also lived experience together to talk about, okay, maybe we need to stop doing this program because it's not working anymore. Or maybe we need to grow it or look in this new market because we see a higher need there. This could be a really good fit for our population. So we want to see leaders making that at that leadership level when they're making those strategic decisions in those team meetings, facilitating a culture with their staff, and also making sure their staff has the knowledge and understanding and that data literacy to facilitate that conversation and that they're fostering that environment of questioning and learning and growth.
That's awesome. Well, so we have kind of like job descriptions, one-on-one, individuals really understanding their data. You have this whole conversation happening at regular meetings and agendas. And then I think the other point that I see here is just like impact teams.
Yes.
So maybe give us a little idea what impact teams are and how we use those.
Yeah. So we love impact, right? That's what we're about here at Transform Consulting Group. And so we came up with this idea of impact teams for organizations to really a couple of factors. One, help them use their data because a lot of times we only tend to use the data when it's time for it to be due in a grant report or a grant application. And so we want it to foster a regular environment or cadence of where team members can come together to look at their data. So an impact team is a great vehicle to do that. And it might already be a team that's in place. What we recommend is having multiple levels. So you do have some leadership and management staff, but you also have direct service staff, and then you might have some other organizational staff like marketing, fundraiser, and your data team. And so, maybe 10 to 15 people, not huge, again, depending on the size of your organization, would come together. And then you would meet however often you have new data.
Okay.
So if you're an organization that serves youth, you might look at a school year cycle. And so maybe you collect data at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, or end of summer. And so those could be, 4 times the impact team would come together. The data team would, pull data to look at. The impact team would study it. They'd get that in advance. They come to the meeting, use some of our guiding discussion questions that we love to use, like what is interesting? What surprises you? What questions do you have? What else do we want to know? Because a lot of times I think in environments, we get data and then we don't even know where to start,
right?
How to analyze that and start that critical thinking and that critical analysis. And again, that's that leadership role and responsibility with your team to help foster that. So those 4 questions are some of our go-to questions and really help just prompt discussion. It's really magic to see it happen.
I have to say, I love using those questions. And, we do it all the time in all of the projects we do.
Right.
Not just total data focused projects, just really all of the things that we do. I mainly feel like I use them a lot in strategic planning projects, and even really just as we've done more marketing communications lately, what is surprising about this? What is this? What do you want to know? And so I love those questions, and they really are key. I think it is a great way for people to really get more in depth. And it goes back to, though, the safety of the conversation.
That's right.
Because those questions are pretty open, and you really have to have that safety.
Right. So the staff can ask really good questions, or make really important points, that might be difficult to hear and not immediately jump on. Right. So we have to also, and it's a progress. So a lot of times when we work with a client to set up these impact teams, we'll create the structure, the format, talk through who to attend, help them with an agenda, help them with the prep, and then we'll attend the first few. Yeah. Because it's easy also to immediately go into problem solving mode, right? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because we do want to use our data, right? And we do want to make improvements and start to correct and pivot if we're not meeting the targets like we want. But we also want to let's have a conversation and get all these insights out there first. And then we'll use a process to kind of prioritize and identify, okay, now what? How do we use this data? How do we share it externally to celebrate and let our partners, our funders know, hey, we're doing really well here, and maybe we need some help here. And then also, how do we talk internally about where do we want to grow and make a difference? But yeah, those 4 questions are always a good one. So what's interesting? What surprises you? What questions do you have? What else do you want to know? Other, good open conversations that leaders could ask is wows and wonders.
Ooh.
What's a wow? What's exciting or interesting, or maybe, interesting and not in a good way. And I wonder is a good, opening that's kind of a safe way to go deeper.
I just chuckle because it's not that I didn't know this before this conversation, but I'm like, how many times have you said that to me in a conversation around project work?
Right.
Like actual project work. And so I'm just like, so just so y'all know, she lives and breathes it. Like this is like a normal conversation that I
We use it at TCG, not just with our clients. It's such a great tool. But as a leader, that's what you want, right? We don't want to take up the airspace. We want to hear the different perspectives, especially those on the front line, because when they're looking at their data, they might have more context as to why something did or didn't happen at a site or with, the clients that you're serving. And that's really interesting perspective that maybe a leader also might have a different perspective, right? And that's the point. We want to bring in everybody's view and those different experiences to combine with that quantitative data.
Well, and I think that's one of the things I love about the impact team. The whole, functionality is because it really brings in those diverse experience. And once again, that I'm like, I love my practitioners, and the day-to-day folks that are in those teaches. And they have great insights. They really are on that front line, like seeing things in real time. And, as a leader, you really want to figure out what is it that they're seeing, experiencing, and how does that really apply? And how do we take that into consideration? Impact Teams brings that in to even a more formalized way.
Absolutely. And again, I think another, great win of moving in this direction of data informed is you're building buy-in with every team member, right? Because a lot of times all that weight and burden can land on leaders' responsibilities.
Yeah.
And then it just feels top down. And so then we want to have it top down, bottom up, all around, that everybody is getting, and we're all rowing together and on the same page.
Well, and as you think about creating those impact teams or putting things into agendas or having these one-on-one discussions, and I mean, once again, you've given us great, questions to ask, to even go deeper into that. What are those key ways that TCG works with a client to really engage leadership? Because I think there's some prep work there, right? Like, once again, even when you were talking, I'm putting myself in a leadership role.
Right.
I'm sitting there going, we're going to look at this data. I probably have evaluated it. I see some areas that are great and I see some areas that are not. And I'm starting to maybe sweat a little potentially, or just wonder how's this conversation going to go? But I just, when I think about, what are those ways that we would really help an organization in the beginning, maybe even to prepare for these conversations?
Yeah. So a client that we've worked with over a number of years comes to mind of how we've been on this journey with them together. And that's Center for Leadership Development, a wonderful nonprofit serving youth in central Indiana. And they've been on this journey to become data informed. And it's been amazing to watch and walk alongside them. And one of the things that we've done over the last few years, more recently, is really targeted coaching with their leaders. So in addition to having a data-informed organization-wide assessment tool, we've also created individual team level assessment tools so that we've identified what are the key competencies that you need to have in a nonprofit organization around data. And then we've identified by different team roles like program team, marketing team, fundraising, et cetera, which of those are most important in your role.
Right.
And then the team member completes that self-assessment, and then the manager does as well. So we're getting that feedback. And then from that, we build that improvement plan. And that's part of our coaching. And then it's also part of any training that we would do wide, because we want to make sure, first and foremost, those leaders are well versed and well informed of the data terms, the data tools and systems, and that their competencies are really strong so that then they're best equipped and resourced to pour into their team and their staff, right? And so that is something that we did over a year engagement with CLD management and leadership, and it was transformational.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then we did team level work, and then we helped to stand up those impact teams for them. And so there we looked at their program cycle, we looked at when data would come in. And so there's 4 times in a year when those happen. And so, like I said earlier, we talked about who would be on the impact team, helped create that agenda, meeting structure for them, worked with the data team and the program team. Here's reports to have in advance so that you could have those more deep and, conversations. Attended some of those impact teams with them, gave some feedback to help, make sure they're hopping. And then, we kind of took the training wheels off.
Well, you know me, I'm a big fan of coaching, right? Because once again, I like to coach nonprofit leaders in general and support that. I've been personally affected, obviously, by coaches in my lifetime, both in the executive realm, in the professional world, but also in, athletics, right? So I love that, literally, we are coaching people on their data.
That's right.
And we're helping them build those muscles and get more comfortable with these conversations and how to address and manage those. So, well, as we start to wrap up here a little bit on leadership buy-in, if there's one key takeaway, I know that you have probably 10 that you could give them, but if you had to narrow it down,
yes,
in all your years of doing this work, what would you say is their key takeaway with leadership buy-in?
I would say leaders look at the meetings you have with your team and start integrating data into those meetings. Whether it's, a dirty report, not dirty like bad data, but it may not be pretty, but start to bring data into your meetings to have data-informed conversations with your team and try out some of those questions. Use the wows and wonders or use those for open-ended conversation questions.
Yeah, I think sometimes we stop, we're it has to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Or it has to be
pretty report, or I don't have a dashboard. I don't have all the data. Start with what you have.
Yeah, start with what you have and get your team used to talking about it. And even some of the questions you're wrestling with as a leader, why do it all by yourself? You have all these incredibly smart, gifted people that you work with.
Yeah.
Have them jump in and kind of share
in that burden and that workload. And I promise you, your data will start to get better because more people will see the value because you're using it now, and your programs and impact is going to get better.
All right. Well, you heard it from our president and founder, Amanda Lopez, around just, what it takes for leadership buy-in and really creating that safe space for the data conversations to exist. And then also just, creating impact teams and then making it a part of those everyday conversations that you have with your team and your staff. So that's really your wine recap for this episode. And, what's up next? We're going to have our next podcast coming up here. And really this one, though, closes out our data-informed culture.
That's right. Should we do a recap?
I think you should. Amanda, you want to give us one last recap of the whole data-informed culture? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'll do a twofer. I'll give you an extra bonus, Danae, just for you. So first of all, what does it mean to be data informed, right?
Yep.
We're using our data and we're using our experience, right? Field work, prior experience, and we're rolling those together. That's where we get the magic, right? And so we want to build a culture within an organization that it's not just when you have a report due, but data informed work is a part of every decision in every organization. And so to do that, you got to have clear metrics. Got to know where we're going, what we're targeted towards, and everybody needs to understand that. We have to have data access. The people in the organization, they need to be able to access the data that they need for the work that they're doing. We have to have data literacy, so we got to have that knowledge and understanding of what the data terms are. And last, we have to have leadership buy-in. So we want our leaders to value data and use it in their everyday work with their team.
I love that. So, and you know me, I've always been a fan of that data informed culture, approach. Like I think so many times
Mhm.
in my life, it's like data driven, data driven. And yes, you want to make data driven decision.
Right.
But once again, I've always kind of came to that place of like, there is something to say about experience and
Right.
history and knowledge. And you really bring that into this data informed
Yes. It's a good
process.
balance of both.
It is a good balance. So I love that. So that's really wrapping up our data informed culture. And we, ended today with the leadership buy-in. And up next is we're going to talk about evaluation and the myths.
Love it.
And
So
so I think
excited.
that'll be a great episode. So join us here next for that. Once again, you can look in our show notes to find resources and information to continue the conversation. Subscribe to our newsletter. And once again, follow us on social media. We'd love to have you become part of our Transformer world.
Absolutely.
With that, in the meantime, cheers to you.
Yeah. Cheers to you.
You and the important work you're doing and the many ways that you are transforming the world or just your local community.